and welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books and other words too. Let's start off on a positive note.
Are we not going to introduce ourselves?
Oh, I guess we should probably do that.
We maybe should do that.
What is your name?
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Lily.
Okay, positive things.
Yeah, just a little ray of sunshine.
My positive thing is that I bought another lime tree. I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't need another lime tree, but
everyone needs another lime tree.
This makes 3. I think I have like 10 citrus trees.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yeah. One of them is not producing. I grew it. It's a lemon that I grew from seed, and so that may or may not ever produce, but the others will in theory.
Do you make, so are they too young for fruit yet?
Most of them. I have 1 mature orange tree and 2 mature lemons that were on the property when I moved in. They're planted by my grandfather, actually.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yes.
You're making me dream of lemonade. It's not fair.
I make a pretty mean lemonade with my Meyer lemons.
It's fabulous.
Good things for you this week?
Well, technically not yet, but by the time this episode is out, I will be seeing my parents for the first time in a year and a half.
That is exciting.
I'm really excited. That's way too long. They're fully vaccinated, so they're driving up to see us, and I cannot wait.
Tell them hello for me.
Hello right now. I know my mom listens to the podcast, so hi, Mom.
Yes.
All right. That's why I'm hyped. It's gonna be nice.
Understandable.
Well, that's sort of in the future, but for now, what are you drinking tonight, Sarah?
I am drinking the remains of my box of wine. It is the same box of wine because I don't actually drink wine all that quickly. I drink other things in between. But yes, what about you?
I am also drinking a same box of wine. It is not the same box of wine because I have multiple people drinking it in this household. And also some good old store brand seltzer water, which is, I was going to say I drink like water, but I guess that's self-explanatory.
Yeah, I'm not mentioning the glass of water that I have here, but I do have water too.
Yeah. Well, tap water doesn't need to be mentioned.
Is California tap water? Is good tap water?
So, Sarah, other than what we already plan on talking about in our episode tonight, have you read anything good lately?
I have, actually. I read a couple of books, one of which was Vultures by Luke Tarzian. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. We should have a standard disclaimer.
We should have a recording before our introductions that just goes, repeat our pronunciations at your own risk.
I like that. We should. Yeah, so I read that, which was very good. It's bleaker than I normally read, but I quite liked it despite that. I would have liked to see the characters and the motivations fleshed out a little bit more. I feel like the book would have benefited from another 50 or 100 pages.
How long was it?
I want to say it was like 300 pages or so. I don't actually recall the page length.
But that's how it felt.
Yes. But despite that, it was still very good. I think the second book is going to be coming out at some point in the near future, next year. It's the second book is coming out at some point, and I will be reading it because I enjoyed Vultures despite that one little minor quibble.
Well, wanting more is not actually a complaint, right?
Exactly. This was so good that I wanted more of it.
Your complaint is that you wish the book was longer, which, okay, yes, that can be a complaint, but I feel like in this case it was just
it was
not that bad.
Yeah, agreed. And then the other thing that I am actually in the middle of reading is Seraphina's Lament by Sarah Chorn. And I have to say that I have never been as pulled into a book in the first 10 pages as I was with this. It was I mean, it's a great book, but it was an incredible start to the novel. I don't have an easily accessible quote, certainly not from the beginning, but I will say that it starts off with a lot of cannibalism, but it was intriguing cannibalism.
I mean, that's great. That wasn't what I thought I wanted, but apparently it was.
Yeah. No, it does it really, really well. I'm about halfway through, and I am looking forward to A, finishing the book, and B, reading the next one when it comes out.
Excellent.
Yeah. Have you read anything unrelated to the podcast?
I have. Not novels, but the other thing that I read this week was an article from Vice, written in fall 2019, or published in fall 2019, relevant only because it talks about traveling, and as we all know, that's a thing of the past. It's called I Accidentally Uncovered a Nationwide Scam on Airbnb by Ali Conti.
Oh my.
I feel like, well, I've used Airbnb only a few times. I think you've used it a few times.
I've used it a handful of times. I generally go for a hotel instead because there's so much uncertainty with Airbnb.
And that's kind of exactly what this article is about.
So do tell.
I mean, it's basically is conspiracy too dramatic of a word? Where companies will pretend to be a couple. First of all, like that's the first part, is you think you're renting a place from just like a cute couple.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out this is a real estate agency or a real estate startup that has no one by that name ever existed. And they post pictures of this gorgeous apartment, and 10 minutes before you're supposed to check in, they call you and say, I'm so sorry, like the people before you flushed something down the toilet, the plumbing is completely messed up. Can we please put you in one of our other units? It's bigger, it's technically an upgrade. Like, we're so sorry for the inconvenience. And then where they actually end up putting you is a complete shithole. So the author of this article had this happen to her, and then she started contacting people who wrote negative reviews about the same unit that she was supposed to have rented. So other people who fell for this exact same scam. Fell for doesn't even make sense, because like,
I mean, if you're not expecting it, like, I feel like falling for implies some level of awareness that there may be a scam.
Yeah, like there was nothing to fall for. They just thought they were renting something off of Airbnb.
Right.
One of the descriptions is, there was blood in the bathroom sink. The bare mattress had red and yellow stains on it.
Pleasant.
Yeah, completely miserable. And, digging deeper, it turned out that 3 or 4 quote unquote couples had the same apartment as the listing, but the pictures were from different angles, and they changed the paintings on the walls. So it looked like a different unit.
Right.
And they were all running this same scam, like get people to pay for this price for this nice place, and then shuffle them off into one of your crappy places instead.
That is wild.
That is wild. But then also the systemic nature of the scam is also wild, because Airbnb doesn't care at all.
You would think that they would do more about something so blatant.
As long as they can justify not a full refund, they still get their money. So if you spend even one night in this place because you're a traveler and you're tired and you're in a city you don't know, so you think, okay, whatever.
And you're checking in late at night, yeah.
Yeah. If you even spend one night, you only get a partial refund.
That is, wow. That's awful.
So anyway, it's this whole thing. It was fascinating. I have never had an experience like that on Airbnb. So as a caveat, that's never happened to me.
I haven't had an experience quite like that, but I did have an experience with slightly misleading images, wherein the angles that the photos of the property were taken from for the bathroom and the bedroom implied that they were 2 different rooms, and they were not 2 different rooms.
Oh my God.
It was wild. The bed was literally like, it was like, if it had just been a bathroom, it would have been a decent size, but the bed was there, and then about 2 feet away was the shower and the toilet. There was no sort of door. There was no way to separate out those 2 spaces whatsoever.
Not even like one of those little folding screens?
Nope. There was no shower
Oh,
curtain. There was no screen. It was an adventure.
oh my God. What city was this?
This was London.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That's the thing, right? Like, what do you do? You're presumably traveling, so you don't have a lot of resources. You just suck it up, generally.
I mean, the place was nice enough otherwise. Like it wasn't
As long as you're staying alone, I could live with that, frankly.
I was with a friend. I was with a
No.
friend, which made it horrible.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
So every time she had to go pee in the middle of the night, like she had to creep in because I had the bed because I had paid for the Airbnb. Like she had decided to come along to this trip sort of last minute. And I said, well, I have this Airbnb. I won't charge you for staying there because I don't think that it has a second like bed for you. So you might have to sleep on the floor. It had a pull-out couch, so it was fine. But
There was space for a couch, but not space for a wall?
I mean, there was the couch was in a separate room.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
It was wild. It was also clearly managed by a real estate company too, which I had not realized.
Well, more recently, I am under the impression that you are continuing to read The Wheel of Time.
I am continuing with my Wheel of Time journey. I'm about halfway through book 11, Knife of Dreams, now, and I have some thoughts. First off, I want to say that nothing has really happened. Well, in the first like 300 pages of this book, nothing really happens, but I'm kind of okay with it because it's developing the relationship between Matt and his lady love. So it doesn't like it's character development, even if it's basically just them traveling in a caravan for 300 pages. So it's still better than Perrin in book 10. I'm just saying it. Still better than Perrin. But there is one thing that has happened in this time period that I was really not crazy about, which is Matt spanking an Aes Sedai. Aes Sedai being like the female magic users. I don't know, you had said at one point that you were going to look up some Wheel of Time summaries, and I don't know if you actually ever did.
I did not.
So yes, Aes Sedai.
Thank you for the context.
Aes Sedai are the women magic users, and
are you not bothering with a name just because it's not super relevant, or does this character not get a name in the book?
No, this character does have a name.
Okay, that changes my opinion.
Yeah, no, she does have a name.
I don't care. I just wanted it to happen.
Yeah, no, she does have a name because she has been present for longer than just this one scene.
Okay,
but her name is not really relevant for the point that I want to bring up, which is that the spanking is really one of the few ways, and a couple of the male characters have spanked some of the female characters in the books leading up to this.
Adults? Excuse me?
Or like, I mean, maybe young adult, you know, like I actually don't know how old they are. I think they're like 18 or 19.
But as like sincere punishment?
Yes, as sincere punishment. And this is one of the few ways. I think in general, the gender dynamics are pretty progressive. I think that the women have a lot of power in this series and a lot of autonomy, but this one instance is so just gross. I mean, like all of the spanking when it occurs is just really, really.
I honestly wish it was a fetish thing because that is more justifiable to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with fetish spanking, like if it's between two consenting adults, whatever. But this is as a punishment thing, and the woman very clearly does not want it, and it's just like, and she starts cursing and yelping. There's a quote: "He was far from weak. Practice with bow and quarterstaff gave you strong arms." And like, he spanks her for basically a whole page. Well, no, maybe it's like 2/3 of a
Oh,
page.
so it is a fetish thing. He's just not admitting it.
He wanted to make sure he left an impression.
I'm sorry, no author is describing something like that for so long if they aren't into it.
You might be right. I have no idea what Robert Jordan's sexual inclinations were.
If he didn't want me to think that, he shouldn't have written that section.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, it mars an otherwise good book. So yeah, I was not pleased when I read that. I did not like it whatsoever.
I want to make an outraged statement about spanking as a punishment between two equals, but I can't because it's not. There is no such thing as punishment between equals. Consequences, yes, of course. But like punishment as a concept is something that you inflict upon someone because you have power over them. And just by virtue of that, the relationship dynamic between those characters is just so off kilter just because that happened.
The use of spanking in this series is really it is one of the few ways in which this book seems incredibly dated.
Is dated even the right word? I don't know.
Okay, I don't know if dated is really the right word, but it's one of the few ways in which this book seems not modern. I mean,
no, dated is. I just find it so hard to believe that is a legitimate action. Well, okay. Again, to clarify, like I'm talking about spanking as a punishment, not as fun bedroom time. That's a completely different thing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, like whatever.
If this had, like I think I said, if this had been an incident, like a bedroom incident between two consenting adults, totally okay with that. Like, I don't mind reading that. That wouldn't make me uncomfortable. But
yeah, just as a punishment tool, I mean, corporal punishment, period. But then the added on just like humiliation of spanking is
in front of an audience too.
That okay. Nope, I take it all back. This is you cannot convince me that this is not a fetish that Robert Jordan has. Nope. There is no argument that exists.
I mean, it's not premeditated.
Well, by the characters.
By the characters. Saying, I mean, yes, obviously.
I am judging the author. Yeah. I'm sorry. What you write says something about you.
Those are my thoughts on the spanking in this book.
Oh my god. Okay. What else you got for me? Lay it on me.
Okay. So now we are verging into spoiler territory.
To avoid spoilers for The Wheel of Time, skip to 1950.
So, two things. One is that Elaine is pregnant, and her pregnancy mood swings I have absolutely zero interest in. I do not want to read about her being pregnant and how she swings from, up to down, whatever. Like, the things that are going on around her and that she's participating in are really interesting, but it's all just ruined by the fact that she keeps focusing on how mood swingy she is. It's so frustrating. And then the other thing is that we finally get confirmation that Moiraine is alive. And to give you a little bit of context, Moiraine ostensibly dies in book 5, which came out in 1993. This is book 11 and came out in 2005, I believe.
Wow.
So I think that, and this revelation for me was a little spoiled by the fact that Moiraine is such a beloved character that when she died, I was like, anyone who gets this much attention in a series from the fans, not from the text, right. Anyone who gets this much attention in the series in an 11 book, in a 14 book series, like they can't just die in book 5. Like that's just not a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like she's going to come back somehow. The only question is when.
Right.
So for someone who was reading this as it came out before the internet was such a thing, that must have just been a massive, massive shock. And I'm really sad that I didn't get to experience that because I think it would have been amazing. So, Lily, you read a book that I did not read, but we're still going to talk about.
I just realized I never looked up how to pronounce the author's name.
Oh no! Well, it's a good thing that we have our disclaimer that we don't know how to pronounce names.
1 second. If her Wikipedia article does not have a pronunciation, then I'm just gonna try my best.
That's all you can do.
Yes, I reread actually, My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. Oh man, this book, it's hard to well, you can capture this book in words because it's a book and it has words, but trying to summarize it was so difficult for me.
How so?
I think at the core of it is, for some books, the question, what is this book about, is different from what happens in this book.
That's fair.
And I think that is very applicable for this book. At its core, I mean, I could sum up this book. I could sum up what happens in this book in a sentence.
What would that sentence be?
Young woman experiences mental health crisis. That's it.
That's
the whole
sentence.
Book. But if you ask what this book is about, at its core, this book is a character study of the main character, who never actually gets a name, which I think is a fun device when used well.
Interesting.
This book is written in first person, and we all know that
that's not your
really
phase.
Not. But this book utilizes it so well. The main character, as I said, is a young woman going through a mental health crisis, and we are seeing these events through her perspective. Kind of at the time, it's sort of written in past tense. She is recalling these events, but these are events that she experienced high out of her mind on prescription medication. So
there's some unreliability there.
She's extremely unreliable. And that is where, I don't think I actually said this up top, it's a hilarious book. I realize all of the words I have just used to describe it sound extremely dark.
It does not, from what you have said, it does not sound like there is much hilarity there. I gotta say.
It's that disconnect between how the narrator is interpreting events with how the reader interprets them as they are told. For example, the main character often describes herself as effortlessly gorgeous. And then in the same paragraph talks about how once she went down to the corner store, I think she says bodega because she's from New York, but I'm not, so I refuse. She goes down to the corner store and the employees say, "Oh, you have something on your face." And she just is like, whatever, like, go away, don't talk to me. And then she gets home and realizes that her entire chin was covered in toothpaste crust.
Oh, boy.
And that's the same paragraph where she refers to Riva, her only friend. She's just so jealous of me because she could never be as pretty as me. And you have to say it in that voice when you're repeating it, because that's how it feels.
That is clearly the implication there.
Yeah. But that's the humor of the book, because she says that and you're just going, are you sure? And she's really not. I mean, as that quote, that was almost a direct quote. I mean, I was like making fun of it, but she says pretty much that exact same thing several times in the book. She is a very bad friend. She's a very unlikable character. But as I said, this is a character study. As you're reading this book, you slowly sort of discover why she is the way she is. Because the main events are her year of rest and relaxation, which is how she refers to the year where she takes enough prescription medication to sleep 20 hours a day. And then she's mad that she has to be awake for 4 of them. Like, her goal, she says several times, is I just want to sleep. And if that's not depression, I don't know what is.
That sounds like an accurate depiction of depression, although I will say that I would like to sleep 20 hours a day just because I want more sleep, not because I'm particularly depressed.
But that's why it's such a, it really hits that balance
Mm-hmm.
And you don't exactly catch on to how bleak her situation is right away.
So things are, I mean,
Well, she's doing fine. That's okay. That's another thing. Sort of, well, she's not doing fine, clearly, I should say.
she's clearly not doing fine.
She is not doing fine. But part of me feels like this book is sort of poking fun at that young adult novel trope that I cannot stand,
Mm-hmm.
which is, you ever read those books that are about high schoolers being rich in New York City with no supervision?
Not really.
No, that exists. And
I'm sure it does.
That's definitely a thing that shows up in young adult novels.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read them, all I can think of is, where are your parents? But this novel is sort of what would that actually look like?
Mm-hmm.
The main character is in her late 20s, because of course, no high schooler. This makes no sense if you haven't read those books that have that setting, but I promise they exist and they're very frustrating.
I mean, I believe you.
Yeah. But the main character here is in her late 20s. The book takes place when she is 28, but she gives like background information as well, so you sort of see like her whole like college through 20s life.
Mm-hmm.
And both of her parents pass away while she is in college, so she's living off of inheritance. She has enough inheritance and then she gets fired from her job, so she has unemployment and inheritance, so she can just live perpetually
in New York.
Well, she buys a condo, like she owns her place.
Oh my.
She's rich.
Yeah.
She's rich in New York with no supervision. And so she finds a completely unethical psychiatrist to prescribe her far too many medications. Hold on. I should find at least one quote. I thought I was going to spoiler block some of this, but none of this is actually there are things that I can spoil in this book, but to this point, even though I am sort of giving information that you don't have from page 1, this is still really just the concept of the novel, I would like to say.
So I feel like because it's, as you've described it to me thus far, because it's such a character study, this doesn't necessarily feel like you've given away anything that would affect enjoyment of the plot.
Not at all.
Yeah.
This is all still it is very well done, the way that the information is delivered to you through the main character's experiences, her memories, and then also her trying to piece together what she did during a drug-induced blackout, which happens to her many times. That being said, there definitely, things do happen in this book. I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to give any spoilers because it's a very good book. But I'm telling you a lot of information, and this is all from the first 25%, I guess is what I'm still giving you the premise.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A distilled and inelegant version of the premise, which if you actually read the book, will be a much more enjoyable experience.
The book does it better?
It does it much better because it has 200 pages to get through this part instead of me just excitedly rambling about it. So I have 2 quotes that are probably both far too long, but we can decide that after I read them. But I would like to... her psychiatrist is the villain in this book. Not in the book, but in my opinion. She loves her psychiatrist.
because of how the psychiatrist is giving her all of these drugs that she probably shouldn't be taking?
Yeah. She tells her psychiatrist that she has insomnia. And so her psychiatrist just writes her booklets of prescriptions. I am not exaggerating.
That's someone who probably should get their license revoked.
Yes. But you read some of the things that she tells her, and it's like this young woman is clearly, as I said, going through a mental health crisis. She is self-harming with these pharmaceuticals. And her psychiatrist just does not care at all. So in my mind, she's the villain because she enables the main character to do this to herself.
Right.
And I'm going to read you now from her psychiatrist. from her first meeting. The biggest threats to brains nowadays are all the microwave ovens, Dr. Tuttle explained on the phone that night. Microwaves, radio waves. Now there are cell phone towers blasting us with who knows what kind of frequencies. But that's not my science. I deal in treating mental illness. Do you work for the police? She asked me. No, I work for an art dealer at a gallery in Chelsea. Are you FBI? No. CIA? No, why? I just have to ask these questions. Are you DEA, FDA, NICB, NHCAA? Are you a private investigator hired by any private or governmental entity? Do you work for a medical insurance company? Are you a drug dealer, drug addict? Are you a clinician, a med student, getting pills for an abusive boyfriend or employer? NASA? I think I have insomnia. That's my main issue.
Okay, two things. One, my parents had turtles, tortoises, that were named Mr. and Mrs. Tuttle. So that's completely unrelated to everything except for the fact that the doctor is named Dr. Tuttle.
Mhm.
And two, that doctor clearly has issues of their own.
Oh, she does. So that was sort of an example of her extremely negligent psychiatrist.
I mean, I feel like that's not just negligent, but delusional.
It's actually an interesting question. Does the psychiatrist know that she's doing something wrong? I'm not actually sure. Because like you said, like she clearly has her own stuff going on.
Clearly.
And does she know that she is just enabling rich kids to get drugs so that she can make money? Or does she like actually believe she's helping these people? I'm not sure.
Well, and there's also the question of if she knew, would she care?
Right. I actually pulled out a lot of quotes from this book, but I think the other one that sort of highlights the way in which the main character is improperly coping with everything that life has thrown at her.
Mm-hmm.
She is talking about sort of the first time she gets home with all of the drugs that she has been prescribed. The side effects and warnings on the internet were discouraging, and anxieties over them amplified the volume of my thoughts, which was the exact opposite of what I hoped the pills would do. So I filled prescriptions for things like neuroproxen, mexifenfen, valdignor, and silencior, and I threw them into the mix now and then. But I mostly took sleeping aids in large doses and supplemented them with secanols or nembutols when I was irritable, Valiums or Libriums when I suspected that I was sad, and Placidils or Noctex or Miltowns when I suspected I was lonely.
It's a lot of drugs.
I probably pronounced half of them wrong, and I know I stumbled over them, but like every page in this book is just like a new pharmaceutical that she is just tossing back like candy. She will list the things she ate in a day and include like pills because that's just what she's eating. She's eating 2 cups of coffee, an ice cream like chiseled out from the bottom of the freezer at the corner store, and like a handful of Ambien and also some Nembutols. Like, that's what she ate.
It's a healthy diet.
Like I said, she's like...
You're clearly struggling, yeah. I know that you said that this was humorous, but it just sounds incredibly, incredibly bleak to me. It sounds so depressing.
It's definitely dark humor. It's in many ways a somber book, but it's humorous in its delivery.
It sounds like a very good book that I would never want to read.
Oh yeah, you would hate this book.
I would hate this book.
I guess I can compare this to, you ever get in one of those moods where you want to put on angry music and just like jam out to it? Like this is that book. Where you're just in one of those moods where you just want to listen to sad music or angry music. I don't know. It's very atmospheric.
See, that makes sense because I do get in moods where I want to listen to angry music or sad music, but it still is not. I would never want to read this book. I just can't get past that fact.
But it's that kind of experience.
Right. Yeah.
Confession time, Sarah.
Yeah.
I didn't actually have time to reread Good Omens.
You didn't.
I
Gasp.
know. I have read it several times. I can still talk about it.
That's very true.
But I feel like I should just say up top, haven't read it in a little while.
I was kind of, when we had to postpone recording a day, I did kind of wonder if it was because you hadn't read it yet.
That was not why.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you said that it was internet issues, but I did secretly wonder if part of it was that.
No, I would never postpone the podcast because I haven't read something.
Well,
I'll just be like
we're
today.
Still recording. Yeah.
I will just be honest and say, yeah, I didn't have time to read it.
You also had to read one extra book that I didn't have to read for this episode. So
well, because you're reading Wheel of Time, like it evens out. I did reread it when the show came out, which was not that long ago.
2019.
Yeah.
I actually, by chance, I was at the show premiere in London.
Ooh, fancy.
I think that's one of the coolest things that I've ever done in my life. It was completely by chance. I was in London for something unrelated.
Were you staying in an Airbnb that had a bedroom in the bathroom?
This was not that Airbnb experience. No. But so I landed in London on Saturday or Sunday morning or something like that. And like I got on the train, the Heathrow Express, into London proper, and I was checking Twitter, as one does, and I saw that Neil Gaiman had tweeted like 15 minutes ago. He had tweeted, tickets are available for the premiere on Tuesday. First come, first serve, they're free. So I was like, heck yes, I'm going to try to get myself a ticket.
Ah, that's so fun.
It was so cool. It was so cool.
Well, now feels like a good time to mention what the hell Good Omens is.
Yes.
Good Omens is a book written collaboratively by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman about the apocalypse and sort of how that would shake out in a mostly modern day.
In a 90s modern.
In a contemporary day.
In a contemporary day. Before we dive too deep into characters and all of that good stuff, I do want to bring up the fact that, well, obviously Terry Pratchett is no longer with us, but so the show got made in part because Neil Gaiman really wanted to do this one last thing for Terry, even though he was gone. And something that I found incredibly moving was that in the theater, when we were all watching it, there was a seat right in the middle of the front row with Terry's hat and a bag of popcorn, because he had said that he wouldn't believe that it was actually happening until he was sitting in a theater. Like he wouldn't believe that any adaptation had happened until he was sitting in a theater with a bag of popcorn watching it on screen.
That is heartbreaking.
And I, like, when Gaiman said that, like, on stage, I started bawling. Like, I was tearing up because it just, the love that was there.
He strikes me as such a good guy. We don't have any
secret.
Nothing has come out recently, right? Like, I've given up on Joss Whedon, but Neil Gaiman is still good, right? I'm Googling him.
Yeah, as far as I know, he hasn't done anything particularly problematic.
Except for what we're going to complain about in this book.
Except for what we're going to complain about in this book. But some of the things that we're complaining about were fixed in the show adaptation. So I think he has learned and grown from when the book came out.
That's something that I actually really love about Neil Gaiman is his very close work on adaptations. I mean, he wrote the screenplay for Stardust. You know, like he's the one who adapted it. He clearly understands how mediums are different, how media is different between books and movies, etc. And also adapting for the times.
I think it's because he has such a storied career. I mean, he's done comics.
Well, he wasn't a novelist to begin with.
Right. Yeah. So he just has a good understanding of how to move, as you said, from medium to medium.
And I just think Not that Neil Gaiman needs more praise.
No, he really doesn't.
He really doesn't. But he can have this particular one. He like truly understands adaptations at their core, and well, Stardust is a whole other conversation that we're not going to get into. But
we should at some point.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head how involved he was with the Good Omens adaptation.
So he was actually quite involved.
That doesn't surprise me at all because he's a great screenwriter.
Yeah, so he wrote all of the scripts for it's a 6-episode miniseries, and he wrote all of the scripts, but he was so involved specifically because he was doing it as like Terry's last request. Like Terry Pratchett was dying. He called Gaiman up and he said, I want like this to happen. And so Gaiman made it happen.
And did he ever?
Did he ever?
Before we dive too deep into the discussion of this book and TV show, would you just sort of give our audience a really quick, like, what the heck happens?
So 11 years ago, the Antichrist is delivered to a hospital because the forces of hell have decided that it's time to bring about Armageddon. And through a comedy of errors, instead of going to the American cultural attaché, he actually ends up leaving the hospital, I mean, as a little baby, obviously, leaving the hospital with a British family in a quaint British English town.
So the main characters are ostensibly this angel and this demon who don't actually want Armageddon to happen.
I was getting there.
I was participating.
You asked me for the summary, but
I wanted to help.
The bulk of the action takes place in the last 7 days before the Earth ends. So they don't have much time. And do you think that's a good summary?
I think we should leave it there because this is such a fun book. And if you haven't read it, you absolutely should.
It is well worth it. The book came out in 1990. It was published on May 10th of 1990. So there are parts of it that are a little dated.
We have mentioned before how Terry Pratchett's work is so poignant with its social commentary. And that does carry through to Good Omens in some regards, but not always. Would you say?
Yeah, I think you're quite right in that he uses humor to great. I mean, they both use humor to great effect in this to comment on like aspects of the real world. But
there are some things about Good Omens that are like really still ring true today, 30 years later, which is truly a masterpiece, frankly.
I mean, that's the mark of a good book if it stands up, 30, like you said, 30 years later.
And then there are some things about it that don't quite as much, in our opinion. We already talked about this. I know you agree with me.
Yes, I do agree with you. We have talked about this.
I think it really is like such an interesting thing, though. So to stop dancing around the issue, in the book Good Omens, it deals with both sexism and racism, which is being very generous to it, because when I say deals with, I mean it completely deconstructs sexism and satirizes it and ridicules it, and then participates in racism in a frankly uncomfortable way.
Yeah, one of the things that I was really struck by in this read through of Good Omens was how like racism is sort of played for laughs a lot of the time, and the non-white characters are props and not, I mean, calling them characters is generous because they really are there just to prop up the joke.
Yeah.
Basically.
At some level, they're not people.
So there's this one character, Sergeant Shadwell, who is in the book incredibly, incredibly racist. Like, he says horrible things about his landlord that I'm not really going to go into, but like, they're bad.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be repeated.
It doesn't need to be repeated.
And Neil Gaiman agreed with us. It can be forgotten. Or not, that's not fair. It shouldn't be forgotten, but it should not be perpetuated.
Yeah, I mean, and I was going to go into this too, but that's an aspect of his character that was removed in the show because Gaiman recognized actually what we did here was not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is just perpetuating racist stereotypes. Like, this is participating in racism and not satirizing it.
Yeah.
But the quote that I wanted to have, or the quote that I wanted to say about Shadwell is from, so there's this other character, Newt, who I don't know if I want to say works for Shadwell.
They're colleagues in some way.
LARPs with Shadwell. I mean,
so this is a world where the reader knows that magic is very much real and all of these supernatural themes truly exist. And Newt is not convinced about that for a very long time.
Yeah, and so Sergeant Shadwell he's a sergeant in the Witchfinder Army, which went and found witches.
And is problematic in its own right.
Which is problematic in its own right, yes.
But they make fun of it for that. That's the thing, is they make fun of it for that aspect, and then they turn around and say, but isn't it, well.
Yeah, but okay, so Newt kind of gets roped into the Witchfinder Army, but he's not really convinced about it. But this is a quote from his perspective. But he found he rather liked Shadwell. People often did, much to Shadwell's annoyance. The Rajites liked him, that's Shadwell's landlords, because he always eventually paid his rent and didn't cause any trouble, and was racist in such a glowering, undirected way that it was quite inoffensive, which is a really white person perspective. That's not how racism works.
Can you, like, I mean, this is just so blatantly out of touch, where someone who doesn't have to experience the thing can imagine that someone would react to it this way. But of course people don't actually, just because someone reacts to it that way outwardly doesn't mean that's how they're feeling. But in this case, the authors are assigning that reaction to the Rajit's character's internal feelings. And that is the problem. That's where it doesn't fit. Just because they outwardly go, okay, it's fine, I can deal with this, doesn't mean inwardly they're charmed by it.
Exactly.
I think that is, well, I think that's where like the disconnect really hits home.
Yeah.
But then you get that in contrast to some of the absolutely scathing comments they make. The authors, Gaiman and Pratchett, the narrator. It's so hard to phrase this. But the scathing commentary on sexism, one of my favorite quotes, you're actually the one who pulled this quote, but I'm stealing it from you.
That's okay. Steal away. But I think, yes, they have a much better handle on sexism than they do on racism. And it shows in this book. Like I said, that's something that is not present, at least something that I did not notice in the show. And I did rewatch the show before this podcast. But a lot of the sort of playing into racist stereotypes gets cut out, which I think is good and necessary.
Yeah, well, they, in this case, Gaiman, sort of acknowledged his faults and said, yeah, like, that's not okay. Let's fix it. Let's make it better. Well, maybe we're attributing too much to him. I have no idea. But in this case, like, I think it's...
I mean, I think that he had final editorial control over the script, so...
Can you imagine him going, no, put the racist Tibetan characters back in?
Well, okay, that in particular is still there, like, because that is an area where I think it actually kind of works, because that's playing into the conspiracy theories that Anathema and Adam, who's the Antichrist, like, believe in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more...
But it's reframed to be poking fun at the racism instead of participating in it.
Yes, exactly. That's not people liking Shadwell despite his racism. That's we recognize this as a weird racist conspiracy theory, and we are going to make fun of it.
Right. And it's that's the thing. It's are we are we laughing with the racists or are we laughing at the racists?
Yeah. So you were going to give a quote, and I completely derailed us from that conversation.
Well, I feel like this is a quote that a lot of people have heard, regardless of context. Maybe that's just me, but
judging by that, I think I know what quote you're going to say. I will be interested to see if I'm right.
Most books on witchcraft will tell you. Yeah, right?
I'm right. Yep.
It's such a good quote. All right, I'll continue.
It is such a good quote.
Most books on witchcraft will tell you that witches work naked. This is because most books on witchcraft are written by men. Like, in 2 sentences, they do more to deconstruct the patriarchy than the entire novel does to address, like, colonialism.
Well, I think it just goes to show that you can be really enlightened in one area and still just really, really dumb in another.
And how much of it was the time period, too? This came out in 1990. That's 30 years ago.
I think they do get credit for getting some of it right. And despite, like, that particular glaring flaw, I think it's still a very good read. But had they kept that aspect of the book in the show, I would not have given them any sort of credit. But clearly, they have evolved.
So the pinnacle of this book, or not the pinnacle, the inciting incident of this novel is not the apocalypse. It is this angel and demon who are trying to raise the Antichrist neutrally. And so they both want to exert their influences equally so that he does not go one way or the other. And so, therefore, the apocalypse would not happen. And that is sort of the driving force of this whole plot. These supernatural creatures trying to force nurture over nature onto this child, but then they got the entire child wrong. And so it ends up, I mean, obviously everything changes and we're not going to tell you how it goes, but their whole struggle is trying to impose nature over nurture.
Yeah, I think that there are, well, as you say, nature versus nurture is one of the overarching themes in this book, but there's also a whole lot about free will and really kind of what it means to be human.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is sort of the through line of this book that's explored through this storyline of the Antichrist being raised by a normal British couple.
And in all of these struggles of the book, we see Crowley, the demon, who's a very celebrated demon for his influence on humanity. However, we find out, well, we are told very early on that he didn't actually do any of it.
Yeah, like he gets credit for the Spanish Inquisition, for example, when he was just sort of in the area. But one of the things that is made evident is that people don't actually need demons to tarnish their souls. They can do it perfectly well themselves. And there's a good quote, I think, that Crowley says or expresses internally, where you found the real McCoy, the real grace, and the real heart-stopping evil was right inside the human mind. So you don't need angels or demons. You just need humanity.
Which is an extremely pessimistic view. However,
I mean, it's an extremely pessimistic view, but it's also given in the text that Crowley's an optimist.
Well, okay.
It says specifically, and I don't have the quote. I have it bookmarked somewhere.
But I think that's couched because he's an optimist, but he's a demon. So what is a demon optimist?
Here we go. Because underneath it all, Crowley was an optimist. It was the utter surety that he would come out on top, that the universe would look after him. So it's
That's
a very
himself.
self-serving optimist.
Yeah, I'm talking about humanity here. Is at the end of the day, humans do the worst stuff, but they also do the best. And I think that is a really beautiful balance.
And they straddle that line. I mean, Gaiman and Pratchett in this book straddle that line very, very well, I think.
Oh, yeah. For all of the darkness that they point out and participate in, at the end of the day, they sort of wrap it up with, but people can be better. I have a confession to make.
What's your confession, Lily?
It's different from the other one this time.
So you did, in fact, read this book.
I did read well, I read the last one too, but I
just not recently and not specifically for the podcast.
Right. I did read this one recently and for the podcast, and I am extremely biased because The Conjuring of Zoth Avarex by KRR Lockhaven takes place in Seattle.
Yes, it does. It does take place in Seattle.
And there are a lot of reasons to like this book, and being in Seattle is a bad reason, but I still do.
I mean, I think it's an understandable reason.
There are just some extremely charming
local references.
Yeah, that obviously, like, you don't have to know where Lake Washington is to enjoy this book, but the fact that that is the geographical call out for some of the action, it's just fun because it's accurate, and I've been there.
To someone who lives in Washington, it feels like an in-joke.
Well, I will say this. He sure as hell didn't get anything wrong as far as geography goes, which can be a huge annoyance.
That's very true.
If someone is trying to set something where they don't understand, then it completely stands out.
Yeah.
And
that's very true.
Yeah, so I think I noticed it because I live here, and so I'm sort of more familiar with the area. But I mean, if you don't live here, it doesn't matter. It's just fun. I'm gonna stop over-explaining it. It was fun. It was good. This book is really fun in a lot of really different ways.
It is. Before we get any further in our discussion of it, I would like to thank KRR Lockhaven for providing us this copy, and B, I would like to say that you can get it if you are listening to this episode as it comes out. You can get this book tomorrow. For everyone else who is untethered from time, you can get it April 1st. So if you are listening to it after this episode has come out, it is already available to you.
I would like to thank KRR Lockhaven for having the name Kyle Robert Redundant Lockhaven.
That's quite good.
It's just excellent all around.
It is just excellent.
The full title of this book is The Conjuring of Zoth Avarex, the self-proclaimed greatest dragon in the multiverse. So when you said The Conjuring of Zoth Avarex, I was like, all right, there's going to be some fantasy bullshit. And then when I saw the subtitle, like immediately upon seeing the subtitle, I was hooked. This book is such a charmingly like self-aware. I don't think parody is quite the right word.
I mean,
but maybe it is.
Maybe. I mean, Lockhaven has said that he takes a lot of inspiration from Terry Pratchett, and I think that's evident in some of the humor of the series.
Oh, the footnotes are some of my favorite parts.
I enjoyed the footnotes, but I think that for me, footnotes are a medium that are better enjoyed in print. And since I was reading this like as an ebook, it felt like they were so long that it broke up the pacing of the book. But that's an issue with the format that I read it, and not with the footnote itself.
I also read it as an ebook, and that didn't bother me. So
maybe that's just a personal preference then.
That's fine. You're allowed to have those. The main premise of this book is that Harris, the main character, is starting his first day on the job of a sort of magical work site. It's called the site. It's the site.
It is magical governmental bureaucracy.
Okay, I really love that this book is not fucking with magic school. I am so sick of magic school. I'm over it. I'm done with it. And I think this book just sort of grasps onto that. Like it somehow Lockhaven knew that and went, okay, magic school is a trade school. None of this university shit. It's a trade school. Everyone already did it. Let's just go to their first job. And oh man, the comedy of someone being over their head at their first job is so relatable. And
I mean,
something
it's done quite perfectly in this.
Oh, it's fantastic. And it's something that it's something that I have not seen in books because I feel like a lot of books are going through the school shit, like all of that learning process. But what happens afterwards?
You don't see a lot of the nerves that you get, at job interviews and first days, and
Oh, yeah.
just getting accustomed to being part of the workforce is not really shown.
What's that phrase? Imposter syndrome.
Yes.
I feel like this book really sees imposter syndrome for someone first entering the workforce. So we are seeing the main character Harris on basically it starts with his first day on the job at this secret magical site, and we discover that he was hired on for a big project, which is as the title suggests, the Conjuring of Zoth Avarex. And that feeling of being in over your head and thinking you were prepared and then realizing you weren't, that I personally found extremely relatable.
I think this has one of the best examples of characters being understandably overwhelmed and unequipped to do what they need to do, not because they're making stupid decisions, but just because like they're normal people thrown into this like way over their head.
They're in way over their head.
They're in way over their head. So like a lot of the times if you're reading a fantasy novel, like someone has to like, go on a quest to get an item, they succeed because that is what advances the plot. And things like that, like they fail kind of miserably at, but I love it.
Because it's all extremely relatable. Like that's at the end of the day. I understand why they made the decisions they made.
Yeah.
It makes sense at the time.
Yeah, I see how you got from point A to point B. I would do that too. And I would also probably fail at plan A and at plan B like you did and at plan C. I see myself in there.
I really, really want Lockhaven to write a zombie novel only because I feel like that is the prime failing of zombie novels or stories in any sense. You have characters do stupid shit just to move the story forward, and it's the worst. However, I think Lockhaven in this novel has proven that he can like truly capture the realities of human limits.
Yeah.
And so I want to see him do a zombie story just because I trust that he could actually do it well.
I would love to see a humorous song. I mean, I'm not normally one for zombie stories, but I would read that. As long as there was humor in it.
Of course.
Humorous zombies.
I guess I'm just saying that's a trope that I would really love to see him do. Just because like the strengths that he has shown, I think would be very good for it. Zoth Avarex, the dragon who fucks shit up in America. That's really okay. Is it spoilers to say there are alternate endings to this book? I don't think so.
No, I don't think that's spoilery in and of itself.
That's all I'm going to say about it, and that it's wonderful. That was something. Okay. This book was incredible because I feel like normally when a book has completed its rising action and it's wrapping up. I either don't care or I hate it most of the time.
You mean the book in general, or that specific like aspect that it's wrapping up?
No, the falling action.
Yeah.
After the climax, I either don't care or I hate what's happening. Like
Yeah.
it's
Right.
usually it's whatever. But in The Conjuring of Zoth Avarex, Lockhaven just like really nailed that plot structure. And I don't want that to sound trite. Like I'm not being shitty. I really mean it. You get the excellent setup where you really identify with all of the characters because of that first job nerves that we've all had. And then this was a book where I actually like I was very excited to read what happened next, even though I was already content with the wrap up of the plot.
Yeah, I mean that's not a problem that personally that I have, but I did think that he did that wrap up very well.
It didn't feel redundant. I was actually interested in it.
Right. It didn't feel like something tacked on.
Exactly. And because he is clearly proven his chops as a good writer through that, I wish he would have trusted the reader a little bit more.
Yeah, the one issue that I had with the book was how blatant some of the pop culture references were. And I feel like that's going to really affect, for me personally, as a chronic rereader, I feel like that's going to affect my enjoyment of this book if I came back to it 10 years from now. Like, it's going to be jarring. So I wish that he had allowed his subtleties, which he's really good at. Like there are some references, some cultural references that are just fantastic. But I wish that he had allowed those to shine instead of putting in quite so many, quite so blatantly.
Yes, I feel the exact same way. I think the references were numerous and some of them landed extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of them felt almost condescending, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need you to spell out the entire name and author of the book. You know, like
Yeah,
I get it. I'm there. I'm
was,
here with you. It's okay.
it was just a little much
Yeah.
at times.
I think a really good example of that. There are two different references to The Hobbit. So, Zoth Avarex is a dragon, and he makes two different references to Smaug in The Hobbit. The first one is, you know, my contemporary, Smaug, who lives in Erebor, which was, to me, too much.
It's a little jarring, like it takes you out of the action.
Yes.
If you're then thinking about like this reference.
Exactly. But then the second reference was someone was trying to observe him for weaknesses. And he just says, "What? Were you expecting to find a missing scale or something?" And that is just so good. Like,
that lands perfectly.
oh, it's so good. Lockhaven, trust me more. That's all I want to say the whole book. Like, trust me, please. Like, I'm here with you. You don't have to spell it out for me. I get it. And when he trusts you, oh, it's so good.
I mean, overall, it's a really funny book. Like I said, I wasn't intending to start reading it when he sent it to us, and then I did because it just sounded good, and I kept reading it because I was like, oh, I'm really invested in these characters and what's going on. Is it a spoiler to say that I've found the revelation of who Zoth Avarex was to be one of the most hilarious things that I've read in a book?
Not if you phrase it like that. I think it's a great thing to say.
Because I found the revelation of who Zoth Avarex actually was to be one of the most hilarious things in a book that I've read. It was so good. It was just perfect.
The pacing, the reveal, masterful.
Yes, it was, it was great.
Even coming into this book, so we had been discussing The Conjuring of Zoth Avarex, which is a title that has its own, you know, associations or baggage or whatever.
Annotations, yeah. And
Yeah.
I didn't give you the subtitle.
No, you didn't. So
I
then
didn't.
when I opened the book for the first time and saw the subtitle, just that in itself felt like a grand reveal.
You're welcome.
Like that kind of punchy humor was excellent. I think one of my criticisms, which it's not fair, you should never compare anyone to Terry Pratchett because that's just not fair to them. But Terry Pratchett gets away with being extremely frank and on the nose because he is discussing a world that is not Earth. And this book is happening on Earth. And so that kind of commentary kind of lands a little bit different.
I think this is another example of if Lockhaven had trusted the readers more, he could have been a little more subtle about the commentary and it would have hit harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trust
Yeah.
me. I'm here with you. Trust me. I think that's exactly what I was shouting the entire time I read this.
Yeah, I think it all, like most of our criticisms boil down to just trust the reader a little more.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, although I did have some minor quibbles with the book, I thought it was overall fantastic, and I'm really excited to see what he writes next.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to tweet at him every day. Not actually, because I don't do Twitter, but if I did, I would tweet at him every day to do a zombie book because I think he would do a good one. The really cool thing is that $1 from every book sold is going to the Washington State Council of Firefighters Burn Foundation, which I just think is extremely lovely.
And it is even more reason to buy the book. I mean, you should buy the book independent of that, but it is an additional reason to buy the book.
Absolutely. It's, you should buy this book. You should read this book. If you're looking for a good time. Is that a weird Craigslist post? Did I just formulate a weird Craigslist post for this novel? I'm sorry.
I mean, maybe, but also unrelated to good times, there was one scene, this is not spoilery, I don't think, but there was just one thing that was absolutely terrifying.
Yes, tell me. Yes. I know what you're going to talk about. Tell me about it.
You know what it is. The anthropomorphized tomato sandwich is one of the weirdest, creepiest things I have read in a book. It was horrifying. Like, I got there and I was like, what the fuck did I just read? But it was great. It was like it totally fit with where the like that action was going. So yes. I loved it. Yes. But it was also just so terrifyingly weird.
Sarah.
Yes, Lily.
Can you believe that Word is trying to edit my writing?
Word tries to edit everyone's writing, so yes, I can believe that.
It's such a pet peeve of mine, which is the most scriptive sentence I've ever said in my life, but it really is, though. Like, what the fuck, Word? Mind your own business.
What did they do this time?
Okay, I feel like this is an egregious example. I was writing an email because Word gets its shit all up in my emails now. So I guess it's Outlook. Microsoft. I'm complaining about Microsoft, but they have
That's not
the
word
same
specific.
They have the same
underlying algorithm.
Yes, they have the same suggestions, and I hate all of them.
Understandably.
I love me some spell check. I'm not above that. I do not have that much pride.
We all heard your rant on research.
Yes, please help me spell words. I'm all about that. But do not give me stylistic edits that are bad. I got I legitimately, this is a word for word edit I got this week. I wrote the sentence, all of our campaigns are performing well. And then Microsoft said, no. More concise language would be clearer for your reader. You should write all our campaigns. All our? No. No.
I mean, there is a trend towards that style of language.
That is not unclear, though. Like, yes.
All of our campaigns is not unclear.
No. Like, yes, there are times where you should edit down to be more concise. I absolutely agree 100%. All of our versus all our is not one of them. And I do not want to see that squiggle underneath my writing the entire time I am working on an email. That is a bad edit. That is a stylistic choice, and you are wrong, Microsoft.
You tell them.
I'm gonna tell them. I'm gonna write them a strongly worded email, and they are gonna try to edit it, and it's just gonna make me more mad about it. That is a very specific example, but I get a lot of corrections that are not technically corrections. They're just stylistic choices.
Yeah.
And I made the decision that I did because it's better. And I am confident in saying that, frankly. And whatever software I'm using needs to shut the fuck up and go away.
See, I'm just used to ignoring those squiggles because I get a lot of those squiggles in the software that I use for work, for coding.
Yeah, you do coding.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, because we have a lot of words that I'm not misspelling, but they're not actual words. And so PyCharm doesn't recognize that. I mean, PyCharm says, oh, hey, this word is not an actual word. And I'm like, yeah, PyCharm, I know it's not an actual word, but that's the word. That is, in fact, the word that I wanted to say. So I'm just used to ignoring those squiggles.
Oh, no. It bothers me so much. Because I need to look at the squiggles. Because if I spelled a word wrong, I need to know. And then it turns out it was complaining about something that it is
Stupid.
doing bad. Also stupid. Both of those things.
Well, that is a pet peeve indeed.
I'm right, you're wrong. Neener.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
You can get in touch with us on Instagram and Twitter at fictionfanspod, or shoot us an email at fictionfanspod@gmail.com.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
Have a great 24 hours. Bye.
Bye.